Hey everybody. About 6 months ago, I made a YouTube that was a Loopy Pro rig rundown video. And I was really surprised after how many folks watched that and commented on that and had some real nice interaction with it. So I thought I would make a follow-up just because I've changed a pretty big component in that. I've swapped out Bias FX2, which I was using for my electric guitar sounds, and I have put in IK Multimedia's TONEX. So let me talk to you about how I got to that, and at the end I'll tell you what the impetus was for it. So I've been playing guitar, electric guitar, for 40 plus years, and I come up through a very traditional background. You know, the kind of thing where you have an amp and you have some pedals here like I have in front of me, and you develop your sound using those tools. During that period of time, I mean, I had some rack effects and other things too. But, playing gigs and, using this time after time and tweaking it is how you develop, guitar sounds. When you move into something that's based out of a box like Loopy Pro, you could bring all this stuff, but, it makes a lot more sense to use some sort of amp sim or some sort of plug-in. And my frustration has been, that you have something that you've developed in the real world, and now you have to kind of recreate it on this amp sim in, to work with Loopy Pro. So I think TONEX helps that be a little bit more seamless. Now, something that's helped me kind of along the way with this is about 12 years ago, I joined a working band that was playing, 8 to 10 shows a month, 3 1-hour sets, through this amp in bars and clubs. And I realized pretty quickly after I started that it was affecting my hearing a lot, where it wasn't just my ears are ringing a little bit the next day, they're ringing the day after the next day. So I switched to these in-ear monitors. And I think it was a good move for my hearing, and I think it was a good move for understanding how to get guitar tone out of a box. So when you switch to in-ear monitoring, of course, you have to mic your amp. And like right over my shoulder here, you can see, what I've sort of boxed out as the sweet spot for that amp, where I would put an SM57 every night. And, we'd run it into a system where it had, the same compression and the same EQ. And I would get that fed in here, and then the front of house would get that fed. And, it takes a little learning curve to get used to that and to get that right. But once you have it right, it's consistent from gig to gig to gig. And after a while, you start to realize that your amp really isn't functioning as an amp anymore. It's functioning as a sound source. It's just simply a sound source. And once you sort of made that equation, you can replace it with a different sound source. And that is essentially what a lot of these amp capture boxes are. So I'm talking about specifically things like TONEX, which I'm using, but obviously before that there was Kemper. Quad Cortex is really popular. Helix is very, very popular. So any of these amp capture, what that is essentially you mic up an amp and you hook it up to some software, and that software plays some tones into that amp, and you record the output of that back into the software, and that creates a capture of an amplifier. So now it can be loaded into your outboard box here, or your AUV3 plugin, or your AAX or VST plugin. So amp capture is something that is gaining popularity with people who are very, very serious players, like someone like Pat Metheny right now, touring with a Kemper profiler. So I think this is something that's gotten to the point where it's not, it's not exactly, but it's so close that it almost, when you're listening through something like this, or you're listening through the mains of a front of house, or you're listening through a recording, it's negligibly different. Okay, amp in a room, different thing. Okay, although TONEX does a pretty good job outputting it just through a full range speaker. I've played some gigs like that. But let me tell you about what I think is unique about TONEX as opposed to a Quad Cortex or a Kemper or whatnot, is that TONEX, it exists in 3 different instances, okay? So first off, and the first thing I'll demo for you is this box, which I'm pointing to here with my foot. This box will take any amp capture that you've done yourself or any amp capture you've downloaded. So, you know, any of these platforms have usually a pretty robust online community where you can download amp captures that someone else has done, either pros or just, you know, just amateur folks like myself. And just load that into your system and audition and try them out and comment on them online. The amp capture that I'm going to demo here for you, I didn't make. It's a Matchless Independence 35, which is about a $6,000 amp used on Reverb. So, you know, you can find some pretty boutique-y stuff out there. And I actually haven't captured this yet. I'm waiting to get a little more comfortable with that before I do that and load that into my stuff. So, but what is unique about TONEX is that it not only exists as an outboard box like this, but it also exists as an AUV3 plugin for any kind of iOS device, which is what I use, and I'll demo after this with Loopy Pro. Also exists as a DirectX or an AAX or a VST plugin that you can use with your DAW. So with Pro Tools or with Logic or whatever you happen to use in your studio. So that creates this consistency where if you get a sound or a tone you like that you use live, or a sound or a tone that you like in your studio, it's very easy to have that amp capture come into Loopy Pro via the AUV3. Okay, so let's do this. I'm gonna just demo some sounds with the TONEX pedal, and then we'll take and try to do those same sounds in Loopy Pro, and then I'll finish off with just also showing that exact same amp capture that I used in a recording. Just to show that it can exist, you know, in all 3 of those different locations. So TONEX itself only does amp capture. All right. So here's the Matchless. I have it set up, or the capture of this is set up as sort of a, you know, just on the edge of breakup kind of amp. The great thing about these amp capture things is they respond much like a real amp. If I play softly and brack down the volume a little bit, it's a nice clean tone. If I turn up a little bit, it gets nice and dirty. So also inside the TONEX, TONEX pedal there, you have a pre or a post EQ. You have a pre or a post compression. There is a reverb that's built in that's actually pretty nice, and a noise gate. So these are the only effects that are in there. But I want to demo this on a pedal board because it functions just like an amp. And you know, to show that, like if I have a sound and I want to sort of like kick the front end of a real amp a little more, I would add something like a compressor here, or I would add like this TS9. My signal flow through this starts out with the guitar here. It comes in through the G50 wireless, heads into the whammy pedal, this old chord compressor, phase 90, the tube screamer here, into what would typically be my amp, but now is the TONEX. So anything on the bottom of the pedal board here is happening prior to amp. So if I want a gain box in front of it, takes those gain boxes really nicely. If I want a little bit more gain, as many guitar players will do, you can stack gain boxes in front. So if I add a compressor on top of that, you get like quite a bit of kick into that amp, and it functions just like someone who, who's had a ton of pedals their whole life expects it to function. I believe that most great guitar sounds come from a combination of things: a guitar, an amp, but also a collection of devices that sort of buffer that signal either before or after the amp. So the whole top row of my pedal board here are things that occur after the amp. If I go for a little bit of a cleaner sound, and I add some chorus, nice stereo delay, or a big stereo reverb on the top of that. This whole board, incidentally, I just put it together, and one of the cool things about it, I may make a different video, is that it's completely powered by USB power supplies here. This is from a power supply maker named Mission Engineering, I believe. So I have their high current power supply underneath there that is fed by these two USB power supplies, which basically makes this entire board portable. My guitar wireless goes into the line 6, so there's no cable connecting that. The only cables coming out of this are 2 XLRs. So this is totally a flyboard. I can go plop it down someplace, plug in an XLR, and I am ready to just be going through the front of the house, which is very cool. So let's take this same sound and let's look at it in the AUV3 of Loopy Pro. Okay, so now I'm hooked up with Loopy Pro, and I have 3 cameras going here. One of them is over here on Loopy Pro, running on an iPad Air V5. This other iPad over here is connected to my interface, which is a Behringer XR18, and then this Akai outboard MIDI controller helps me with some of the patch changes and things like that. Down here, I have a Behringer FCB 1010, which I may show if I pull up something beyond my template. But this is how I control my live Loopy Pro performances. So I thought I'd wire all this up here. So let's take that same sound, grab my electric here. Okay, now the difference between this and what we heard earlier is this guitar is plugging right into an input channel on my interface. Pedal board is gone. This is simply going directly into the interface. Everything that you hear is being processed inside the box as AUV3s inside Loopy Pro. And let me see if I can show you that over here. So this is my guitar channel. Once it comes in, I've got a whole bunch of plugins and whatnot on there. I think the easiest way for me to show you those is to show you on this screen. So much like before, I have a compressor that I can use. What I have sort of like rigged up here for my templates is I use these rotary encoders to turn different effects on and off. So this is with the additional compression. You can hear a little bit more drive with that. And I have a phaser, which is a Audio Rack's phaser. Let me see if I can pull that up here. I'm sorry, Analog Rack phaser by Nambrini, I believe. I bought this as a bundle. It's a pretty good bundle. I mean, it's not exactly the Phase 90 that I have on my board, but you know, the whole point here is to do this outside of that. You certainly could bring that extra board and use that with Loopy Pro, but the point here would be to just have things that exist completely inside while you're doing it. So I have a phaser. Shut that off. I also have an analog rack flanger. Analog rack tremolo. Now, one of the really, really cool things that you can do once you get into the AUV3 world or the plugin world is you can run multiple instances of TONEX. So I mentioned before that TONEX will capture an amp. It'll also capture any non-time-based pedal. So it can't capture something like a chorus or a delay or things like that, but it can capture other gain pedals. So I have a second instance of TONEX in here, which is running a gain pedal. It's running a pretty classic one, a Clon. So if there's my clean sound. It's the same matchless Independence 35 that I was running on the pedal board, and I'm going to throw a Clon in front of it. A little grittier. And it's nice that you can model these other pedals and things like that. They have TS9s like I had on the board here, Clons, Boss distortions, whatever, rats. So you can set up your signal path right here within Loopy to sort of mirror the signal path that was on that board. I also have a nice, this is a pretty stereo chorus that mimics the Dimension, I forget what it was called, the Roland Dimension chorus or something, but it's a very nice stereo chorus. Also analog racks, stereo delay, much like I had running on the pedal board. And then the last thing, which is sort of like the reverb that I had running on the board, is I call this my shimmer pedal, but this is an Eventide black hole reverb, and it has other characteristics on top of it that you can. Let me just do this. Let's just, I'm gonna take this sound, and I'm just gonna do some stuff in Loopy here with it, just to sort of demo how I would use a template kind of thing. So. I'm gonna loop that. And I just was triggering that loop with my foot pedal over there. Add some delay. Little phaser. Put on the Clon, second instance of TONEX. If I want to clean it back up and put some shimmer on there. So if I just clear all that. So that's how I would use it in a kind of a template environment. I've mimicked the same kind of setup that I had on the floor with the physical pedal board, with just various plugins. As I said, most of those are called analog rack. That tune that I played is a song of mine called When You Lie. And let me just pull that up as a Loopy project here. So one of the things you'll see on the pedal board here is I have a couple of widgets set up to switch between my rhythm and lead sounds. And the rhythm patch is button 6 on the pedal board here. And what I do is I map the foot switch to the widget, so I get real-time feedback someplace that confirms that it's actually switching. So let me play a little bit of this, and then I'll show what the rest of this looks like in a studio environment. So this is called When You Lie. Let's just come right from where the loop comes in. Want to switch to the drive channel? So that's how I would use it in an actual song sense. I would start from that template page where I've got everything in there, and then break it down to loops that are going to come in pre-recorded, and then map some things to my foot controller so that I don't have to be twisting knobs up here to switch things. So I'm going to switch setups, and then I'll show you what this looks like in a studio environment when you use TONEX. Okay, so this is I'm over at my studio desk now, and I have my guitar plugged in to my Pro Tools rig here. So let me grab that here. This guitar is going directly into the input stage of this rig, which is a warm audio preamp. It goes into some Ferrofish converters, and then into a a Motu LP32. That's how it gets into Pro Tools. But there's no besides conversion and preamping, there's no other processing going on with this. So you can see over here, I have 2 channels, and this is the actual Pro Tools session I'm going to use for the audio of this whole video here. So I have over here, this is my speaking microphone. This is the guitar DI, and then this is TONEX here. And you'll see, just like I mentioned in Loopy, I have 2 instances of TONEX. This instance, to move over to this side of the screen, is the Matchless Independence 35. This should sound similar. The other instance of TONEX here is a clon capture, so it's a gain pedal, and if I enable that, I get, of course, a a hotter signal into the matchless, and just like a real amp would, it overdrives it more. And so this, this is a real nice way to audition tones here live. Like, this is the matchless, but I can go through, and here's a plexi, real overdriven plexi. And I'm recording the DI channel here. Like, I'm peaking it a little bit there. And then I'm also recording the TONEX here. So the cool thing about that is, as long as you don't have too much latency, you can track right into your DAW, record the DI. You can record the TONEX signal too if you want, but you could also go back and just reprocess that DI and just audition amps and do that kind of stuff. One thing I'll say about latency is this is something that anybody in any studio deals with, is the more stuff you have going on, the more plugins, the more audio, the more trickery that you're running in your studio, the more difficult it's going to be to keep things low enough latency to play with it. So sometimes what I will do when I have a really big session and I have to change my buffer size so that I've got some pretty significant latency, is I'll track through that pedal board into into my DAW here and record that pedal board just like I'm recording the TONEX channel here, and then also record a DI before it hits the pedal board. So then I have two options. I have the option that I tracked with, and then I have the option that maybe if I want to change later and add other amps or different gain staging too later, I can do that. So that so that's kind of how I would use it here in the studio. I did mention in the first portion of this video that I would talk about the impetus of why I changed at the end. So I was using Bias FX2 made by Positive Grid. It's a good piece of software. I've used it in the studio for a while. It runs as an inter-app audio app, so you have to open it up outside of Loopy Pro, and then once you open Loopy Pro, it'll connect. It's a bit of a pain to do that, but I had a few things that I was dealing with that. Adds a couple seconds to set up time. So I've tried to shy away from inter-app audio stuff, but that's not the only reason I got rid of Bias. So Bias has something else with it that I think is just non-pro, is that like part of their like protection to make sure that you're not pirating this software, I'm guessing, is that every time you open Bias FX, it has to authenticate through the internet. So if you're here in a studio, not a big deal. I have my Wi-Fi here, open up Bias FX, it connects, you don't even know it's there. But if you're at a gig, I play a lot of gigs, and there's not just free Wi-Fi floating around every place I play. So what I would do, and I did this for about 7 months once I started gigging with Loopy Pro, is I would take out my phone, open the Wi-Fi hotspot, connect with the iPad, open up Bias FX2, connect it, authenticate it basically through the internet. Then I could open up Loopy Pro and go on with the rest of my setup. Takes a couple extra minutes. Okay, I can deal with that. Bit of a pain. Problem is that not every venue in the world has great signal for 3G or 4G. So I played this gig last summer. It was actually a looping feature gig with all different looping artists. Changeovers were tight, and I'm setting up. I have all my gear set up, and I'm trying to authenticate Bias FX2, and it won't because I can't get a good internet signal on my phone to hotspot over there. So I'm sitting here with people in front of me ready to start playing, and I literally can't open a piece of software that I purchased, and that just rubbed me the wrong way. So after that I was like, I play other gigs that have lousy reception. I play a gig on the beaches of Lake Erie every summer that sometimes you're lucky to even get calls there. So I just can't count on that consistently. So I don't know. That's something that works for them. It doesn't work for me, so I moved on and got TONEX. So thank you, folks, for listening. I do enjoy conversation and interaction over this stuff. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and I'll try to respond or link you to what to a better explanation for this. So have a good day.